anti-Islamic views. Notice they didn't say that the Islamists were notorious for killing. Notice they didn't say anything about setting people on fire in their homeland of ISIL. No, it was Pamela Geller. No, indeed, everything is upside down in Alice in Wonderland. That evening, on Monday, all three so-called networks were repeating the hate group, the description of Geller's group as a hate group. That's put out by the Southern Christian Poverty Center, whatever it's called. They are an actual hate group. The Southern, I don't know what it's called, Southern Christian Poverty Center, I don't know what it is. It's a leftist fanatic hate group. It's a hate machine. And they're the ones who called her a hate group. So you know the story, and you know what they did on MSNBC and CNN and elsewhere. They blamed Geller for causing or provoking the shooting. And NBC terrorism analyst Evan Coleman claimed they were not holding a free speech event. Are you listening to this? They said this is not free speech. So Coleman now wants to define what speech is. This is how obnoxious it's become. But I'll quote Winston Churchill again, who said that the object of the protections of free speech are to protect offensive speech. I've said it to you 1,000 times. Polite speech does not need the First Amendment. It's obnoxious and offensive speech for which the First Amendment was written. But as you well know, activists like O'Reilly and whatever her name is, Sustern, the Scientologist, and the others, don't understand the difference between real freedom of speech and safe freedom of speech. Do I have to remind you that the National Endowment for the Arts subsidized the maker of Piss Christ in the 1990s? Do you remember what the Brooklyn Museum did when they showed a dung-covered artwork on the Virgin Mary? And the man who was running the Brooklyn Museum giggled over it, saying that they're protected by the First Amendment. How about when the National Portrait Gallery promoted a video of a crucifix with ants crawling over the body of Christ? Was that freedom of speech? We were told it was. Well, there's room for that in America, but not in Muslim America. You see, they want to bring their backward world to your community. And with O'Reilly's help, they'll get it.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Against the world has been a war of attrition, a war spanning millennium. It didn't start on 9/11. It started a long time ago. But because of multiculturalism, which was metastasized by Bill Clinton, who opened our borders in a way they were never intended to be open, the nation has been flooded with people who are, let us say, whose views are antithetical to the views of America. And they're refusing to join the melting pot. They want you to melt into their retrograde world. And if you think these two shooters in Texas are alone, you are more naive than Bill O'Reilly and Greta Sustern together. Here's a little story for you that just came up on PJ Media. Maybe you haven't heard it yet. Are you ready for this? A Kansas City mosque that lobbied Obama to ban free speech will hold a funeral for the Texas jihadist Nadia Sufi. A service will be held tomorrow for Nadia Sufi at the Islamic Society of Greater Kansas City. Now, this is the equivalent, would be the equivalent, to put it in context for all of you who are liberal, of, let's say, it's the mid-30s, and the Nazi movement is spreading its tentacles around the world, including in America, which they did, where they had speeches on stages with a Nazi flag on one side of Madison Square Garden and an American flag on the other, with a poster, by the way, of George Washington behind them and Adolf Hitler. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? This went on in this country. I'll never forget when I saw that when I was a little boy in the 50s. I was going through old magazines, and I found out that the Nazis had been that prominent in America as far as the late 30s and brazen enough to hold rallies in Madison Square Garden and other venues here in the United States of America. And no one could stop them because we have freedom of speech in America. But behind George Washington, behind the American flag, was Adolf Hitler. And we know what Adolf Hitler wanted. He wasn't George Washington. He didn't want freedom of speech. Now, make believe that some members of the Nazi Party tried to shoot some Americans, got caught, got killed. And a German church, a Lutheran church, let's say, was going to hold a funeral for the Nazis in America. Tell me what would be said. Tell me what would be said if they held a funeral for some of the members of the Nazi Party who were killed here. Certainly the FBI would have been there and gotten down the license plates and names of everyone at the funeral. A Kansas City mosque that petitioned Barack Obama to ban free speech, defaming Islam in 2012, will hold a funeral for one of the two jihadists killed in a shootout Sunday outside a Dallas area convention center that was hosting a Draw Muhammad cartoon contest. This is from PJ Media, great site. The funeral for one of the people suspected in a chilling attack, outside of a Texas art contest will be held in the Metro, says KCTV5. While Nadir Sufi never lived in the Metro, his father lives in an Overland Park neighborhood near 158th Place with his wife, Nadir's stepmother. A woman who came to the door at the home told KCTV5 that the family didn't want to talk about what happened to Sufi. Police say the 34-year-old and 30-year-old Elton Simpson opened fire at a Dallas area conference center on Sunday. The art exhibit and contest depicting Muhammad was being held there. By the way, whenever I hear the word the Prophet Muhammad, I'm a little disturbed. How come they don't say the Lord Jesus? How come they speak about Jesus just by his first name, Jesus? What do you mean, Jesus? You mean he's Jesus, but Muhammad is a prophet and Jesus isn't? Anyway, we'll go on. I'm just trying to show you what language is. There's more to the story. Back in September of 2012, this Islamic Center launched an online petition calling for Barack Hussein Obama to sponsor a bill limiting the free speech of American citizens by criminalizing insults to religion, namely their own religion, following international protest of the innocence of Muslims video. I can read more on it, but you should read it yourself. One of the board members on the mosque defended the petition to ban free speech. In an interview with the local media following the report by PJ Media, they said this: insulting somebody else or putting somebody down can incite violence and lead to people losing their lives. We're trying not to give these people a chance to misbehave, said Mohammed Kohia, who started the petition along with the executive board of the Islamic Society of Greater Kansas City. Now, the ACLU stepped in and they disagreed with them at that time. Here's what the ACLU attorney said, which I'm shocked. Somebody's speech is no excuse for violence. That's right. But you can't punish the speaker for the violence practiced by others. While I understand why they're upset, their preposition is clearly unconstitutional. I'd like to hear the ACLU's opinion today. By the way, this same mosque had hosted internationally renowned Islamic hate speaker Khalid Yasin, whose controversial statements include calling for the death penalty for gays and describing the beliefs of Christians and Jews as filth. The Australian news channel exposed this hateful imam's views back in 2005, and we have a video of it. They do on PJ Media, which I'm going to link up on michaelsavage.com. So Nadir Sufi and Elton Simpson tried to silence speakers at Sunday's event in Texas. And now there's a funeral for one of them. And I'm not making it up. A Kansas City mosque that wanted to ban free speech in 2012 will hold a funeral for this vile Texas jihadist shooter Nadir Sufi. I wonder if O'Reilly will be there with a crocodile tear to show how balanced and fair he is. I wonder if Greta Van Susteren will be there to show her solidarity with her Muslim friends. You want to talk about this? Because they're not alone. Many of you are confused. You think that this is just about Pamela Geller. Pamela Geller is not the problem. She's the victim. She has showed you what is under the surface in this country. Every sane military member in this audience knows what the battle really is. Ask any soldier who fought in Afghanistan or Iraq what they saw Muslims doing in the countries that they were sent to liberate. Yeah, ask them and maybe you'll find out what terrorism really is. Or you don't have to go that far. Just recall people being set alive, afire while they're alive. Ask about the Yazidi women being raped as young as 8 years old by these peace-loving Muslims in the Middle East. Ask about the kidnapping and the murders. Ask about all of these things. You'll understand what the battle really is. And you'll understand at this event in Texas is only a spark in America. It's a war that's been spanning millennium, a war of attrition spanning millennium, said Sutcliffe. I guess we can wait a little longer. That's in page 65 of Countdown to Mecca. In this book that I wrote, the novel coming out next week, I've got the shivers on this. The title itself is eerie, given the timing of this event and what's going on in the world. Countdown to Mecca, coming out next week. It's a chilling proposition in this novel. It's a great story, a lot of fun things in it, but it's very serious. And the generals who plan to destroy Mecca during the Hajj are very high-grade, fourth-generation, third-generation military men in America. And I have an imaginary dialogue of these military men saying, let's get them all at once. Let's get most of the fanatics all at once, or we're going to be dead within a certain number of years. Well, my hero, Jack Hatfield, gets wind of it in an obtuse manner, and he rushes to stop the plot. My book is about not hurting people at Mecca, by the way. Of course, you're not going to hear that. O'Reilly will hold up Countdown to Mecca and say the hate monger Michael Savage calls for blowing up Mecca. I'd expect nothing less from that hate monger. Or the Scientologist will hold up the book and claim the opposite of what my book actually talks about. That's if they ever mention it. I doubt it. They're clear Soviet journalists. In the Soviet system, they ignored you if they wanted to kill you, just like O'Reilly has done on Fox News. Make no mistake about it, O'Reilly has a track record of being rather fascistic, in my opinion. O'Reilly is behind the banning of the most important talk show host in American history, Michael Savage from Fox News. It doesn't hurt me. It disturbs me. It disturbs me that this man gets away with it. But maybe you'll find out now that I'm in very good company, and you'll understand who Fox News is really run by. But let's put Fox News aside. We have a real big battle here, and it's not with Fox News. The real big battle is with the middle-of-the-road individuals in America who don't really know what Islam is about. They don't know it at all. They've never gone through a reformation. But in my imaginary dialogue in Countdown to Mecca, I try to explain it to you. I describe what's in it. So I have the generals standing around a shooting range as they're lining up the conspiracy. And one looks at the other and says to them, I will cast terror into the hearts of those who disbelieve. And he says, therefore strike off their heads and strike off every fingertip of them. Who said that? He looked into the face of each man. General Reynolds seemed to look back at him, but in fact his gaze wavered between the general's eyebrows and eyelashes. The Quran, sir, General Morton replied sharply. Verse 812, just one of the more than 100 verses that call Muslims to war with what they call non-believers. General Brooks said, and who do they call non-believers? Anyone who isn't Muslim, Reynolds interrupted. Quran 551 states that Muslims are not to take Jews and Christians for friends. Allah describes them as unjust people, close quote. General Brooks says quietly, the Quran invokes kill the infidel 120 times. What kind of sane nation permits these people to practice such open hatred? Sir, General Morton said, I thought we were here to discuss Firebird. General Thomas Brooks, U.S. Strategic Command, lowered his Remington shotgun and fired a warning blast of scatter shot at Reynolds' foot. Reynolds' shins caught a few ricocheting pellets. That's in Countdown to Mecca. That's just a little taste of what's in there. You have to understand what went into this novel and why I wrote it. You should buy 10 copies and give them to your friends before it's too late. Now I'm going to take some of your calls on the Savage Nation to talk about free speech. Let's go to Barbara on WDRC Radio. Barbara, welcome to the program. What's on your mind?
Pamela Geller is the canary in the coal mine. She's Paul Revere. She's a very courageous woman, and she makes me proud to be a woman. And there are not many women I can say today, at least in the political...
Well, remember years ago I said the women will save America? Do you remember that quote? I don't know how long you've been listening to my show.
Saying that, and you're absolutely right. She had the courage. If people in Washington had a third of the courage that she displayed, we would not be in this mess. And I'm so grateful for her standing up and doing this. I mean, to think that someone should be killed for drawing a picture.
Yeah, I understand that. Let me send you a free copy of my novel, Countdown to Mecca. Yes, she is